I'm Jimmy Lewis.
I'm Trevor Hunter.
And we're with Dirt Bike Test, and today we are talking about the 2021 Honda CRF450R. This is a really anticipated bike. It's kind of Honda's big news in the dirt bike world for this year, and we got to ride it at a one-day riding impression at Glen Helen Raceway. And we're taking the bike home, so we'll definitely have more information, but this is our first riding impression. So, Trevor, what's new on the bike?
I think it's easier to talk about what isn't new. They made significant changes to the frame and chassis. I think they made some suspension refinements and even some suspension changes. And then they also made some changes to the engine as well.
It's like all new. The cylinder head is the big change on the engine, but I think in reality the hydraulic clutch is the biggest change. They say the cases are kind of the same. I know one side is the same. The other side has all the adaptation for the hydraulic clutch. They've done a ton of work on the mapping, and we'll get into it in detail when we go through all of our sections. So right off the bat, we like to start with power, and I have never been disappointed by Honda power. It's usually plentiful.
Yes.
May not always be the most or whatever, but lately it seems like it is at least close to being the king of horsepower. It's certainly in certain segments of the power. And the old bike was a little bit of a beast sometimes. Too powerful. And you're a 250 guy, so it was worse for you.
Yeah, to me, the Honda was the fastest bike and also the hardest to ride bike because of that power was so just aggressive and violent and just wasn't super smooth on the old platform.
And what it does, and this is interesting to talk about, is the old bike, especially after riding the new one. I got a chance to ride an old one, which, by the way, Honda is selling they're re-released in the 2020. So if you want to save about $1,000, you can buy the 2020. But I'll tell you straight up, spend the extra $1,000.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Unless you're not too picky and you just want a really powerful bike, the old one's just fine. But what the old one does is it has these humps in the power. It's like the power delivery doesn't seem to be. It's smooth, but the new bike is really, really smooth. Yep. And the old one has a little hump right when you get on the throttle. It's got a pickup. Yep. I don't want to call it snap. It's just power.
It hits you hard.
It's dry, but it has power. Then it kind of has a dip, has another little pickup in the mid, and then there's a pickup at the upper mid. And this is the one I struggle with because it picks up, and it feels like it's going to run out of power, and it makes you want to shift. But you can rev it even farther. Yep. There's more power after that. Imagine if you took that power delivery and you just smoothed it out all the way through. That's what I feel the new one does. And where it's really beneficial is right off idle. When you're just starting to kind of come on the power, no matter where you're out on the track, and it's almost no matter where you start coming on the power in the RPM, it's always smooth. There's never sort of this unexpected hit that. It wasn't that noticeable last year. I wouldn't have said this last year until I rode these two bikes back to back.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The new power delivery is super smooth. It's smoother and more linear, which I think it's not maybe super exciting. Having the ups and it doesn't feel super fast, but I think overall it still keeps that Honda. That Honda kind of tendency
to me fast. It's fast. It feels fast.
Fast.
I don't get like kind of those snaps or those pickups don't kind of excite me because I actually feel how fast I'm moving, and a lot of times, especially when the track degrades and it gets hard pack or slick, that spins. It doesn't grab traction, and when it kind of does something different from my wrist, the engine felt more lively yet not snappy, and it filled in the space and really good. The big thing that really helped is the hydraulic clutch is really, really good. Now, we don't have a lot of time on it to start talking about durability and how the thing lasts, but I was using the clutch. I don't use the clutch a lot, but I was going around the track at gear high where I was doing it more on purpose to test the clutch, and I was really happy with the control. The lever pull it's just a tad lighter than what the cable felt like, and the engagement and everything I thought was excellent. So. And I don't have a problem with the motocross bikes. Like I say, I don't use them that much in the motocross bikes. On the off-road bikes, I did, and I struggle with them. But if this is an improvement, and I know a lot of other people had problems with the Honda clutches, I think it's going to be a big improvement if the durability really holds up.
Yeah, I was super impressed with you. I'm not a huge hydraulic clutch fan. I ride a KTM, but I tend to prefer a good cable clutch, but the Honda hydraulic clutch really impressed me today.
Yeah, it is good. And then another thing was really good was the shifting.
Yep.
I was doing a lot of shifting, wide open, no clutch, just
Yep.
rifling through the transmission, and it was happy. I think gear ratios seemed like they were good, but there is one problem with the power delivery. I noticed, and I think a lot of other people did too, and you mentioned it also.
Yep.
There's like a little hiccup right off the bottom.
Yep.
So at low RPM, kind of bigger throttle openings, and we couldn't tell whether it was rich or lean. It has this little pop, and it's like bad jetting.
Yep.
And it was noticeable, and that's something that we're going to work on fixing. And then I also played around a lot with the modes, and I found myself very happy riding around in the aggressive mode. And the stock mode is good. The mode number 2, which is the mellow one, I didn't care for it. I didn't see any reason for it, in all honesty. So, and the reason I like the aggressive mode is that I'm a little bit heavier. I'm about 20 pounds heavier than I used to be, and that weight actually mellows the power out enough to where the aggressive mode isn't as aggressive, and it allows me to ride a gear high. I'm finding this on all the bikes.
Yep.
It allows me to ride a gear high and pull out of the turn without having to use as much clutch. Where if I'm in the standard mode, I have to clutch it a little bit, or I need to be a gear lower. And that's why I'm not using the aggressive mode to, quote, get a more aggressive power. I'm using it to pull me out of the turn a little bit better.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Even though I'm at 40, 50 pounds lighter, I feel like when I ride the aggressive mode, you got to ride it, you got to respect it a little more and ride it more like a 450 where I ride a gear high, try to be smoother on the throttle, smoother with my lines, whereas Mode 1 actually preferred, at least today, traction was really good, but I preferred Mode 1, and I kind of rode it almost like a 250F. I tried to ride it a little more aggressive, and I wasn't
Kind of revving it more than torquing it. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the other thing. The bike is, like I said, the engine's more lively.
Yep.
It's just freer. Felt like a little bit, well, it definitely was a little bit less compression braking. And if you decide to ride it like a 250, where the old Honda did not like that.
No, you couldn't do it.
It was almost too powerful to do it in a lot of spots, or it felt like it.
Yep.
Where this one, it's a little more like the KTM and the Husky, where you can ride them a little bit more like a 250F or a 350.
Yep.
That kind of power and stuff. So overall, I think they did a pretty good job. And we'll talk about how this ties into the whole package, because I think that's pretty critical. On to the suspension.
Yep.
Where were you on that?
Overall, I was really impressed. I'm kind of on the lighter side, being at like 160 pounds. So 450s in general have always been a little stiffer for me. But today, I jumped on. We set the sag at like 105 millimeters, and I rode it quite a bit in stock. And then I ended up stiffening up the fork one click in the compression just to help kind of ride a little higher in the stroke. And I was totally happy today.
Yeah. So I'm always fidgety at Glen Helen, and I and especially with Hondas, I'm always like clicking here, trying to find this magic setting. It's what I've been doing with every other bike I've ridden out here this year, and we basically added 3 turns of spring preload, which brought it for me hot. It was like 100, 101, which meant it was 105 to 107 when it was cool, depending when you set the sag. The recommended was kind of 107 today, they said, and so. Difference between us is 3 turns of spring preload. I hopped on that bike. I didn't want to touch the suspension. It's so strange. I mean, I'm like, wow, it's really happy. And the first thing that came to my head is like, because I saw the Showa guys there. I'm like, is this Kayaba stuff? Yeah. And that's a compliment. That's not a slam. And what the Showa stuff felt like to me is they got this initial bump compliance that they haven't had. Now, granted, Glen Helen was not its normal brutal, especially late in the afternoon stuff. So it was great today.
Yeah.
But it got choppy. I stayed out longer than anybody and was hitting bumps on purpose to feel it. But the initial bump compliance was really good. It still had the excellent control that Showa always has, but it might have been just like tapered off just a little bit, so not being so stiff. And really good bottom users. I did not bottom this bike once today, and there were some cupped things in the bottoms of landings, and that's usually a bit of an issue. So, kudos to them for getting that feel. And I asked the Showa guys, and I didn't want to be mean, but I said, hey, it felt like Kayama stuff, which is, and maybe, I don't, who knows if that's a direction, or I'm sure it's a target, because everybody talks about how good, Yamaha suspension is. So this this setting, like I said, didn't even click it.
Yeah, no, I was super impressed. Typically I'm not a 450 guy, and the suspension I could never get set up, but today it worked really good right out of the box.
Yeah. And now we're going to roll into the handling. This is where I think this is the key to it. So their big push on this, they've gone from, what was their old one, like Ultimate Hole Shot or something like that. Something like that. They've gone past the start straightaway now. They've gotten off of that, and now they're into the turning. They're really pumping the turning character of this bike. The first thing I noticed when I hopped this bike was the light feel. It felt light to me, and I have this elephant brain remembering every bike that I've ridden, and I'm going, wow, this thing feels really light. Like, and you even kind of said 350.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, it feels like a 350.
Yeah,
almost.
You had this in the KTMs are always the really light feeling bikes. It's a good target to be looking at in that direction. So I go, it's really light, and then I'm trying to figure out where is it better and different. And lucky I rode the old bike, because we talked a little bit about in the steering feel, the weight feel in the bars is the same, 20 to 21. But it's that foot peg feel. It's that steering through the foot pegs, kind of the side to side, and the way the rear end of the bike feels. Like if you're going to go off a jump and you're going to kick the rear end out. I don't do that, but if you were to kick it out, I did a little bit just for shits and giggles. It's a lighter feel. It just, the bike is more nimble, and with the easier to control power and the suspension that's a little bit plusher and a little bit more supple. That whole thing, it feels like there's less rigidity in the chassis.
Yes.
The tuning they've done, it's a slightly longer fork. It's a slightly softer shock, from what I'm told. Just everything they've done has kind of altered the bike, and it's a good package. I think that's the key. It's almost like Honda. They've always had really good individual components.
Yes.
And it's like somehow it comes together, and it's like, these guys didn't talk.
Yeah.
To each other, and it's like now it's somehow either they magically work together or they really worked on getting everything to work together.
No, it feels like the whole package is designed to work together. Not one guy is trying to get the best for him, but it might throw something else off. Everything works really good together.
And I could see if you made a lot of power, if you made this motor jerky or more aggressive, it could upset the rest of the bike. So. And then the clutch adds an element of control.
Yep.
So that's working towards it. I thought the brakes were just average.
Yep.
But
I do agree.
Just average is fine. They're not overly strong. The rear wasn't touchy. This is a problem I had on the Kawasaki that kind of, now these bikes are so good, little things can kind of set you off. And it's not that you won't get used to that by riding it a little bit. If you rode the Kawasaki all the time, your foot would learn to be a little ginger with.
Yep.
Like this bike, it just seems like it has a lot of potential to make a lot of people happy, and that's the way the old Honda works. Yes. You just hopped on them and they fit like a glove. And it seems like they kind of went off in these different directions that made them a little bit more polar, and this bike feels like it's really kind of centered again.
Yeah.
So, ergonomics, like the rider triangle didn't change. That felt really good.
Yep, felt good to me too.
I'm still a little, so I didn't like the little hiccup on the bottom.
Yep.
I don't like Honda's buttons.
I hate it.
like the traction control and the modes. Like, give me a button I can just push once and it changes on the fly, please. Yep. I don't care if I only get 2 maps, because I don't even need that second mellow map.
Yep.
But I want a button that I can do on the fly. The traction control for me was kind of useless, because it only felt like it was working in the first maybe quarter to half a throttle. That's not when I need traction control. Yeah. I need traction control when I've screwed it on a little bit too much, and it it starts up the face of a jump or something or whatever, and I want that to be dialable, not the first quarter of my wrist.
Yep.
So I think they've kind of missed the boat. We're going to do a little more investigating on that and see if that's something that's alterable through the HRC tuning tool. Same with our little hiccup off the thing. And you had this happen, and I had it happen also. Our bike, a couple times, did not want to start. It's almost like the battery lost amps. It lost some cranking amps. And it was hot today.
Yep.
And I don't know, and it was after I'd done a couple starts, and I stopped and was resetting the camera, and it was like, and you tipped over.
Yeah.
Lack of balance, right?
I ran out of talent.
Yeah. Just a slow tip over.
Yep, just a slow tip over, but enough.
Hopped up, and then bike, same thing. And what, took a minute or so? Or?
It probably took at least a minute or two of fidgeting. I tried hitting the kill switch and the starter at the same time, and then hitting the starter just to reset something. And then eventually, after a while, I tapped the electric starter button twice super quick. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I hit it to start it, and it started right up.
Yeah, and I tried everything.
Yeah.
Because it happened to me twice, and like I said, I was resetting cameras when I was doing it, and it did kind of these funny things. But we don't know if it's just our battery or it's heat. The battery got hot, whatnot. But those are kind of the two, the little glitch, the buttons, and the things. But other than that, I mean, we're digging to pick on stuff. So. And there is no Kickstarter.
No, there is no
by the way.
Kickstarter.
So we're going to have somebody go race it this weekend, and hopefully they don't stall or tip over, and that it doesn't become a problem, because I'd hate to have somebody lose points because of that. But it's all in the name of testing, and we'll get to the bottom of it. And ours bike was the only one that did that particular thing. We were watching and asked everybody. So. I think it's I think they've kind of hit a home run with this thing.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I wasn't a huge fan of the older generation Honda 450. But for me, this is more like the older
Can
bike.
it get you off of Yamaha? That's the real question.
It might.
Yeah.
I say it might. I think the older 450 was more at a very specific target market, whereas this is more broad and can be like more like the everyman's bike.
I agree
More easily.
totally. It just seems like it's opened up. It's going to make a lot of guys happier. It is lighter. It feels lighter. It's lighter on the scale. All that stuff like that. Honda durability has generally always been really good.
Yeah.
We're going to test. We'll hammer the clutch and do all the stuff that we need to do to see where it's at. That's why I've got the bike, and we'll get you all this information and more in the full test. So, if you enjoyed this, share this with a friend. We're trying to give you the best information out there because we take this testing stuff serious. It isn't a hobby for us anymore. So share at dirtbiketest.com on all the social stuff. www.dirtbiketest.com on the webs, and we will see you out at the track or on the trail. So for Trevor Hunter, I'm Jimmy Lewis, and we will talk to you in the short future.